everybody, Neil here from the Four Corners, and welcome to part 2 of the top 8 Ninjago Season 12 minifigures that should be made. In part 1, we looked at the bottom 4, so in part 2, we're going to look at the top 4. So we have a lot of exciting figures to go through. So without further ado, let's get into the list. In the number 4th spot, we have Bobby. Now, Bobby was Milton Dyer's intern, and he was waiting patiently for a raise for a very long time in Milton Dyer's mansion. Bobby looks cool. He has white hair, and he has a bathrobe, and I wish he was made into a figure, and if he was a figure, he should have come in a set called Dyer Mansion. And I think how this would have worked is they should have dedicated some sets to Prime Empire, and then dedicated one set or two to whatever is happening in Ninjago. Kind of like Hunted. Hunted dedicated a few sets to what's happening in the Oni Dragon Realm, most of the sets to what's happening in the Oni Dragon Realm, and then some stuff to whatever is happening in Ninjago. And I think Season 12 should have done the same thing, where there should have been one set called Dyer Mansion, and it would have come with Bobby, Milton Dyer, maybe even the Mechanic, and Zane, and Pixel, and it should have came with most of the figures that were missing that were playing a huge role in Ninjago City when the Ninja were in Prime Empire. But it wasn't a set, so I guess we're not getting a Bobby figure. In the number 3 spot, we have Milton Dyer. Now, Milton Dyer is Bobby's master himself, and he kind of reminds me of a lion, mainly because of his hairpiece. He was hiding out in this arcade with a secret door, and he looks pretty cool. He was pretty clumsy in the show. For some reason, he kept falling down flat on his face all the time when he was trying to follow Pixel, and he was one of the most important characters of Season 12, which makes me wonder why he wasn't made. But again, these sets tried to focus more on the Prime Empire, so I think this figure would have been made if they made at least one set that focused on the Ninjago side of the story. In the number 2 spot, we have Racer 7. Now, Racer 7 is one of my favorite Speedway 5 billion racers, and I think it's almost everybody's favorite Speedway 5 billion racer, because she was the only Speedway 5 billion racer who was properly focused on, and she was one of the main side characters for Season 12. It made me really happy when she passed the 4th mile marker, and I think the Jungle Raider should have been a $20 set and come with Racer 7, because the Jungle Raider, the $10 one, which comes with Lloyd, doesn't have enough gap between the main chassis and its wheels, and it doesn't really accurately capture whatever it was in the Speedway 5 billion. But still, it's fine, and I've seen people try to make Racer 7 with their own parts, but you can't really make the helmet hair combo because they haven't really done that properly yet for her hairpiece. Anyways, we're going to go to the number 1 spot, but before we go to the number 1 spot, I want to mention some honorable mentions. These are things that didn't make it into the list, and we just didn't have enough space to put these figures on the list. One of them is Gail Gossip, the news reporter for Ninjago. Another one is Mrs. Dyer, Milton Dyer's mom. Another kid is Leroy. Leroy was the kid who didn't want to play with his friends and wanted to play video games instead. I just think civilian figures is what we need for Ninjago. We just don't get enough of them, and the only time we actually got them was for the Ninjago movie, and those were cool. In the another honorable mention is Cyrus Borg, Fuji Dove, and Fred Finley. If you don't know who Fred Finley is, it's the dude who kept mentioning that he had one extra award every time we saw him. Every time they would switch to ad and come back, he somehow had another award already. Now we're ready for the number 1 spot. And in the number 1 spot, we have Detective Zane. Now, Detective Zane is something we actually need. I love Detective Zane when we saw him in the show. Ninjago Confidential was a good episode, but the Detective Zane made the whole thing even better. And I loved it when Pixel also went detective mode. The jokes were so solid, and if they made this figure, they could make alternate face print for Zane where he has a funny face on, and his whole torso print and hat would be cool. There wouldn't be anything too much to say dual molding and those things wise or detail wise, but just having that figure would be awesome because of how it was in the show. Anyways, that's all for this list. If you didn't see any Season 12 figures that you thought would be in this list, or you wanted it to be in this list that didn't make it to the show, comment that down below, because I'd love to see that and see what other Season 12 minifigures that weren't made are. Anyways, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.